What's up, Seahawks, and welcome back to In the Hoop, a weekly show where we'll keep you in the loop about all things UNCW basketball. I know I say this every week, but today we really do have a great show for you. And I know that because I'm not the star. The star is sitting right here to my left, and it is women's basketball head coach Nicole Woods. Coach Woods, thank you so much for joining us.
That's a good intro there. I wasn't expecting that. That was good.
I tried. Well, Coach, congratulations on the season.
Thank you.
You've wrapped it up now. Finished the season 14-18. Mm-hmm. That is more wins than the last 3 seasons at UNCW combined. Mm-hmm. Finished 8-10 in the conference. That's as many wins in the conference as the last 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. You in the preseason talked a lot about more offense and more depth. You delivered on both those promises. Averaged 64 points per game. That's the most for UNCW since 2019. Had 6 players average 6 or more points. Had 6 players play in every single game this season. Knowing all of that, how do you think this season went for you and the players?
You know, us coaches, we're never happy. You know that. We're always going to find something. But I think, first of all, our team bought in, and, you know, they did everything I asked them to do. And winning's hard. It's very hard. And I think we were in a lot of ball games this year that we weren't in last year. Oh, yeah. And, you know, we definitely took a step forward. I think we'll post some graphics this week about the improvements that we made on the offensive end, going from being dead last year in pretty much every statistical category that you can think of, to leading some, to being in the top 3 or 4 in a lot of the offensive categories. Kate Holyfield, she finished the conference season leading in 3-point field goal percentage. We already know about Allie and her defensive prowess, and so I'm super happy with our progression. I think it was a good step for us. We probably left 3 or 4 games on the table there that we would love to have back, but we've got the ship pointing in the right direction.
Yes, well, you mentioned her. If we're talking about this past women's season, I think the first name has to be Ali Zelaya. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that at the beginning of the season that she was an offensive big, and she delivered on that. 12 points per game, 2 assists per game. She set a career high this season 4 separate times, had 3 20-point games. But, of course, the real thing with Ali is her defense. 9 rebounds per game, 2.5 blocks, both led the CAA. What can you say about her limited time as a Seahawk, from recruiting her to Wilmington to the end of her career?
Yeah, you know, it's sad that I only had a year with her. You know, I'd give anything to have more time with her. And I remember our first conversation in which we talked about the defensive side of things. And as I said, she was always an offensive player. And I told her she was going to be the defensive player of the year in the conference. And you should have seen how she looked at me when I said that. But, you know, it's something about belief. You know, when you have others that really believe in you and push you and hold you accountable to get the best out of you. That's what Allie did. You know, she worked hard. She did everything that we asked her to do. And because of it, our team was successful. You know, that we had somebody that could score on the block as well as defend the paint the way that she did. And so I was super happy for her, just, you know, coming from, you know, an institution where she was a reserve, played limited minutes, to being able to be the focal point and to be counted on. It was a great finish for her, and I'm super happy for her.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to get to talk to Allie quite a bit this season. She's terrific. And I noticed just about every single time I mentioned her individual accomplishments and accolades, she immediately took it right back to her teammates.
Yep.
What does that say to you about the connectedness that this locker room had?
They were a great group. They really were. And, you know, you can kind of tell early, you know, what type of group you're going to have. And they played for each other. And one thing that I always kind of preached to them was that they needed to be player-led. They needed to be player-led. It didn't need to be me being the one, you know, directing everything. And they very much were. And they picked each other up during the hard moments and rallied around each other. Every team's different. And when it comes to, like you said, the camaraderie and how close they were, this group probably was one of the tops that I've coached.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it, connectivity, a big thing, but especially in today's day and age, that's not always a given. Last season, you brought in 9 new players to this Seahawk roster.
Yeah.
Without giving away too many of your secrets, what do you think we can expect this offseason?
Well, we'll probably, we have 6 or 7 scholarships that we'll have, and You know, we will definitely need to bring in another post player, clearly, right? Another post player, specifically probably a 4 player, because, you know, Angelina was out this year on the injured reserve, as well as Torrin Rogers. And so we'll have both of them back, but we still probably need a 4 player. We need another big guard that can, you know, slash and be able to, you know, create for others. And we need another point guard for sure. Those 3 with us graduating, Jania Hall. And so those will be 3 focuses for us. And then we're going to get the best players that fit us the best. And I think the fit is the most important thing. And, you know, we've got some players that, you know, that we are eyeing, that we can't wait to talk to come tomorrow when the portal's open, and some that we've already been talking to due to them being grads. And so for me, I want to bring in more multi-year transfers this year, like Kate and like Torrin, so that we're able to get them and have a little bit more time with them. And of course, if we find a stud that has a year, I guess I'll just have to take them, you know, and have another great year like Allie did.
I hope we can find someone. But again, going back to some of the preseason stuff you and I talked about, you told me a quote from a friend of yours, Tanisha Wright.
Yes.
That was, you can't trust freshmen. Whatever you get from them is a bonus.
Yep.
And looking through that perspective, you got a massive bonus this season with Tia Dobson.
Yes, Lord.
6 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, started the majority of the season. Did having Tia as your starting point guard change the way you look at freshmen, or did it impact the way you're going to recruit freshmen going forward?
Absolutely. You still can't trust them. I'm just playing. No, you still can't trust them. You know, whatever you get from them is what you get, and you can't be mad either way. No. So, no, I still feel the same way about them. But Tia, you know, I had a lot of, I guess, in my mind, expectations for Tia. You know, I wasn't going to put that on her, but I knew what she could be given the opportunity. And I do think that things changed for us in the conference once we moved her to the starting lineup. It just kind of calmed everybody else down and allowed them to kind of, you know, be within their element. And so we're looking forward to her. You know, she definitely was a fan favorite that a lot of the fans loved, and you know, she's excited about next year and already chomping at the bit.
I know she is. Now, we've talked about the transfer portal. We've talked about freshmen. We've talked about returners. I want to talk about your preferences.
Okay.
You know, going into your first season, you didn't have that much control over the roster, but your second season, you pretty much handpicked this roster, and we saw what happened. And I imagine you'll do pretty much the same thing headed into your third season. So, as a coach, what is your preference between transfers, freshmen, and returners?
That's a very good question. I like to have a balance. I do. You know, we signed 4 freshmen last year and then 5 transfers, with it being such a large class. We don't have any freshmen signed this. We didn't sign any in November. And we still have a couple that we're looking at, but we're going to get the best players, you know, the ones that we feel like are the best players to come in and help us right now. And so, you know, we might not sign any freshmen this year, but that doesn't mean that I don't believe in freshmen. You know, technically, you know, we do have a freshman in AP, being that she's redshirting. And so, for me, you know, I just think it's a harder dynamic for freshmen to come in and be successful now with the transfer portal and, like you said, with everything else. And so, to answer your question, my preference is to have a balance of the two, but you know, you don't always get your preferences based off of just kind of how the recruiting cycle goes.
Yeah, well, we certainly trust your preferences after watching last season. Now, final question here. Like I said, you and I had talked about you wanted to be the biggest turnaround in the country.
Yes.
I don't think you quite hit that. No. However, I am confident in saying you were the best turnaround in the CAA and the best turnaround for UNCW since the 2015 season. So knowing all of that, going from 5 wins to 14, what would you say is the state of this program?
You know, they say sometimes you shoot for the stars. You might not hit the stars, but you might hit the moon. And I felt like we hit the moon with that. You know, we had to have something to work towards. And like you said, we didn't get there, but we got pretty close. And in terms of the state of the program, you know, my first year, my whole job was just to kind of steady the ship. You know, it was kind of rocky there for a bit. And I think, you know, we have a sense of stability now. And I'll never forget what you said to me one day after a game. You go, Coach, this is the first time I've left out of here and I expect to win. Mm-hmm. And that's a difference, you know, and that's how many of our fans felt, that every game they came to, they expected to win and they were disappointed when we lost. Yep. And so now, you know, that's what we need to continue to build upon. And, you know, we're going to keep working hard to get better with the ones that we have and continue to bring in high-level student athletes. You know, we also had the highest GPA since I think it was like 15 years since we've had like a 3.71 or higher. And so super proud of the young women that they are on and off the court. And we're going to continue to bring in, you know, high-caliber people just like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, as I said, I expect you to win, and I know I'm not alone in that.
That's right. That's right.
Well, that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much, Coach Woods, for joining us. Always happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Join us back next week for a men's basketball season wrap-up, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at @SeahawksCentralSports_UNCW for all of our exclusive content, and of course our weekly Seahawks Central episodes on YouTube for all your updates on UNCW athletics and Wilmington news. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time.